YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another quick game of interplanetary I Spy going on here for all you space detectives out there. Now, this is insane. You're going to love this. You're going to absolutely love this. This is like the holy grail of archaeological finds so far as I'm concerned, especially from my channel anyway. This is one of my best finds ever. At least the best one this year, I would say. Possibly the best in a couple of years. We have this. Let me show you it. Now, I published this 21 hours ago on Mars Magazine, Facebook, and starting to go viral already. I've shared it on a bunch of sites already, just a meme on its own. This is a high quality image, and I do encourage you to download this, as I put here. Download this image and keep it safe, as with all my ArtAlienTV pics, because basically I'm worried that some of my stuff may get censored or whatever. A lot of it has been already. Because it simply doesn't fit with what we're being told by certain organisations like NASA, okay? What we have here is a giant petrified bird, which is turned to stone, and what looks like a buried person tucked in the corner here, right? And you can see the bird shape quite clearly there. Some of it's broken away underneath. You can see here there's parts of it broken away. You can see the beak at one end, you can see the head, we even see an eye just there. Here, look. And then we got the back coming round like this, we got the wing coming round like this, tucked in. The tail's broken off, unfortunately. I think this would have come right up to here, off the page actually. And this thing is huge. Now, how long do I think this is? Well, I think the actual person here, the buried warrior looking person, who seems to be wearing a helmet, is probably about 2 feet long. Maybe less, maybe more. I don't know exactly. Now that would make this bird extremely large. Have any others been found this large? Well, I did find the skull with a beak of a bird back in 2013, one of my very early videos, which I called The Giant Bird Found on Mars. And that skull in itself is about 5 feet long, with a massive long beak and a huge head. And a lot of people said, oh, it's just a rock. It's just a rock. Well, I don't think so. If you're familiar with my channel, you would have seen a lot of these before. There's a few birds here. This one looks like an ibis or something. There's one here that's a hawk. This is very large. So some of them were huge. This is a hawk skull, just lying on the ground in Gale Crater. You can see the eyes here, a nice curved beak, just like an eagle or a small kite-like eagle would have a beak like that. I've done pictures of birds of prey. I used to paint them. I know about birds. My mother is one of the world's leading experts on parrots, and she keeps many types of birds. So there's also this bird here, which was spotted. I published this about a year ago, and this was really cool. This is a bird, and it's in flight. So there are birds on Mars, and some of them still seem to be alive. There's another one in the background just there as well. So see that? It's not very clear. You just see it behind. If you scan through these images on Mars, you will see these things buzzing around, but they're usually just a tiny speck. Occasionally we get actual bright UFOs as well. But some of these are birds, and there's another one here. You can see just back here, just there. Now that's not an image artifact, that's another bird. So there are multiple birds flying around in Gale Crater, scavenging on things on the ground. Perhaps things like little lizards and maybe other nesting birds. They prey on them, who knows. Things like lizards and rodents, perhaps. That's what they eat down on Earth, so that's probably what they eat up there. So I've long established that there are birds on Mars, but of course NASA wouldn't admit there are living birds, of course. They wouldn't even admit that there are dead ones or fossilized and mineralized ones like this. So there we are. But this is an astonishing find. Let me show you in here, let me show you some more detail. Now, I'll show you the actual pan I've done here. And we've got this ridge at the back. This comes right along like this, at the back here, right? And then we've got all this sand piled up against it. But in this part here, the sand has eroded or blown away. Okay? And under this ridge, we have the giant bird with a person. There's the person there with a helmet on, with arms and a body. And then we have a giant bird. Now let's brighten this up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to crop this because it's a large image to keep zooming in and out of, and my computer doesn't like it. So let's crop the whole area and see what we can see. Right, that will do. Now let's brighten it up. Really bright. There we are. Yeah, that will do. Now you can see pretty clearly. That's all we got to do. And in fact, I'll show you where I got it from. This is the page. Where is it? Here we are. This is Sol 2779 ChemCam, Chemistry and Camera, ChemCam. This takes round images. Now, around the edges of the image, it's a bit blurry, but in the middle part of the image, it's really good quality. And these are not downgraded. Unlike the Mastcam images, these are really good quality and nice and clear. And we got a whole set of them here. And what I did is stitch them together using a sort of GIGAmacro software. And you can see the little dude there at the end. But I think this tail would have come all the way out to here. Just here. That's probably the end of it there. So, but I had to crop the image somewhere. And I couldn't fit it all in really because it's so big. I mean, this thing's enormous. So that tail would have come right out off the edge of the page here, okay? Let's get that clear to start with. So this bird is extremely large. I think the body we have here is something like about 2 foot long. Now I could be wrong. It could be 1.5, could be 1, it could be 2.5. I don't know. But let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at that first. We've got an arm here. Got a body here. You want what looks like another arm kind of curled up there. Let's do that in yellow because you can't really see that. It comes like that. Right. And there's the head with a helmet. I'll show you this in greater detail in a minute. We're just going to get an overview first. Now, if this is 2 foot long, let's say for argument's sake, let's say this is 2 feet long at the end, this person. Because a lot of them were very small, and I have found many other small ones. And it is certainly not 6 foot. It's less than 3, I would say, for definite. Okay, and it's probably somewhere between 1 and 2 feet long, this. Now that would make this bird extremely large, but it wouldn't be the largest one that I found. Because there was one I found back in 2013, and just the head on alone was about 5 feet with the beak, which would have made the body enormous. So maybe this is bigger, I don't know. But it looks to be about 2 feet, this body. And I think the legs would have come to here initially, but that's kind of sheared off or obscured for some reason. So we're not seeing the whole thing. And the bird itself, you've got the beak, obviously you've got the beak at this end, the head coming down, up like that, the back here, the wing comes to here, like that, right? And the body would have come to there, and the tail would have come right out the other end here, like this, right? And you can even see eye detail here, right? There we are. There's the eye, and he's got a dark bit in the middle, just there. Like a lot of the specimens I found, they're extremely well preserved and mineralized. And I did go into some detail about how this works in Gale Crater, because the lake was a salt lake, at least in its latter stages, and it's very high in minerals, bicarbonate minerals, much like Lake Natron. Now I did do a video about this a while ago, but I will show you this article. I'll link to this below in the description. Still life photos of petrified animals at Lake Natron, birds and bats, preserved in bicarbonate salts and minerals. They've fallen into the lake and got covered in these minerals, which then crystallizes on them and then preserves them perfectly with amazing detail, even with eye detail. This explains how a lot of the mummified or what look like fossilized creatures that we see in Gale Crater still have eyes, even iris detail they have. and they're extremely well preserved. Now, I'm not saying that the Gale crater was exactly like Lake Natron in Africa, but it was very similar, and the actual things we're seeing are extremely well preserved, some of them, and look like they've been mummified in salt and basically turned to stone. Now, this may have happened very quickly with some of these, like on Earth. If you fell into this lake, literally in a number of days, you'd be covered in these minerals and literally mummified. And these would only harden. And often these are washed up on the shore on this lake, and this artist collects them and then takes photographs of them and sticks them on things like this and takes these amazing photos. And this is what we're seeing in Gale Crater, very similar to what we're seeing in Gale Crater, but the minerals are slightly different, and there's also a lot more dust on Mars. This sticky kind of orange dust that sticks to everything as well. So it's not exactly the same process, but it's very similar. And I think over a million years or hundreds of thousands of years, these would become fossilized in very, very good condition. I've got plenty of examples of birds. I've got this video here which I showed before. This one here, there's a hawk. Now, birds of prey have got curved beaks, unlike the one we're seeing today. This is a large hawk. Okay, there's multiple birds in this video. There's at least 4. So I'll put links to these other relevant things. There's a playlist on birds. I'll link to that at the end of this video. And I'll link to this article about Lake Natron in Africa. So this kind of explains a bit what might be going on in Gale Crater, or at least what was going on before in Gale Crater when it had more water in it. This water would have been extremely saline, and anything that fell in it would be preserved and mummified, literally. And these mummified creatures then, if left long enough in the right conditions, which they were, would then become mineralized and turn to stone, which is what we're seeing. So they're literally petrified. But it's a complex process. There's also this rather interesting image here of a person found dead in a salt mine, perfectly preserved. Preserved by nature. Here he is. Now this looks very similar to some of the heads that I found on the surface of Mars. Okay, they're literally mummified. But over a million years, if this was left in a very salty, freezing, dry atmosphere, these things would basically kind of mineralize to stone, eventually. Here we are. Interesting article this on ancient origins. So I'll link to that as well. I won't read any of that now. We don't have time to read all that. So there was also this. Now, this I thought was interesting. Giant storks may have fed on real-life hobbits. Now, this is kind of what we're looking at today. We're looking at a giant bird next to a very small person. The fossil remains of what may have been hobbit-like species of human were discovered in 2003 in a cave in Indonesia. In that cave, scientists also unearthed a large number of bird fossils, including 20,000 to 50,000-year-old wing and leg bones from what appears to have been a stork nearly 6 feet tall. Now, these little Homo habilis, or the hobbits, were only about 2 feet tall, similar to the person we're looking at today, right? Similar kind of size, but the ones on Mars may have been very different. They may have been much more advanced. These were sort of early Stone Age, prehistoric people in Indonesia. From the size of the bones, we initially were expecting a giant raptor, which are commonly found on islands, not a stork, said Heineck Manjir, or whatever, a paleontologist. So this carnivorous giant was hitherto unknown species of marabou stork, among the largest birds alive on the planet. So this was a huge stork. Now, there were lots of giant species on Earth, and I'd imagine there were also lots on Mars. Now, Mars having a much lower gravity than Earth, only 1/3 of Earth's gravity, it would have been possible for animals to get much, much bigger, because there wouldn't be the stresses and strains on the bones and joints that we have on Earth in a high gravity atmosphere or on a high gravity planet. This means that giants 3 times the size of ours were possible on Mars. Okay? So imagine the largest things we've got and times them by 2 or 3. And that's possible on Mars. Not only that, in this case, it seems that they were flying around. Now, a lot of the giant birds we have on Earth, or used to have on Earth, were not flying birds, they were flightless. There were, in mythology, there are things like the roc or the phoenix, the giant birds that were in ancient mythology that were massive and had a wingspan of 25 or 50 feet or something. Now, incidentally, the bird that I found in 2013, which I'll show you in a minute, its head is 5 or 6 feet, including the beak, that is. But this thing here, if this is 2 feet, 1, 2, 3, this is about 7 or 8 feet long. And in fact, if we count the whole length of the thing, which would have come right across to here, then this thing is more like 8 to 10 feet. I don't know exactly, but it's very large indeed. So let's look at the enhancements again, or something here, because it shows some of the details a bit better. Let's go in a bit closer. You can see underneath it where the rocks have broken away and fallen off parts of the fossilized creature here. But if you look at the actual details in the rock, you can actually see where the larger feathers were here. You can see feather detail. Extraordinary. So this was a calcified or petrified bird. And over probably a million years or a couple of million years, this has actually turned and mineralized into stone from what it was. A long and complicated process. Well, not complicated, but very laborious. So there we are. We've got a giant, what can I say? I mean, I was so gobsmacked when I found this. I was like, oh my God. Not only do we have a person, but we have a bird as well. And if you look closely at the person here, zoom into that. I don't want to get too close because it's very blurry because I've enlarged it. But you've got a helmet here. It comes around like that. And we've got these eyes here showing through. So it's almost like a Greek helmet in style. We've got an arm here, which is the arm's broken there, split. Goes there. We've got a thumb, hand. The arm comes around like that. This is kind of broken away a bit here. It's kind of broken. Split there. Shoulders. What seems to be an arm sticking up here, which is kind of, or something curling round like this. Right? And this looks like almost like armor. We've got parts here. There's some details in here which are strange. And it gets very bright and reflective when you enhance it, as if it's metal. It may not be, but it's very reflective, especially here in this part. This may be the other arm here, along the side, but the detail's obscured there. So you can see all that in the raw image. It's there. It's a person. And I think it was a warrior. Why? Because he's wearing a helmet. Simple as that, really. Absolutely crazy. Let's have a closer look at that helmet, or the head. You've got eye detail in there. Now, like I said, with these calcified mummies, or petrified mummies, I should say, the eye detail is preserved. And we've even got iris detail in there. I don't know if you can see that. You can see those darker parts. Once you've seen it, look carefully, let your eyes adjust. Let's zoom back a bit. You've even got teeth here. Right, there's the chin. So this helmet seems to sort of come right down to there and come around like this. But what we may be seeing is not a helmet at all. It's maybe an exoskeleton. As I've said before, I think that some of these Martians, especially some of these reptilian-looking ones, seem to have had a lot of bony material on the outside of their face, not on the inside. Okay? So that may be partly what we're seeing here. I don't know. But there's some interesting stuff in there. But when you get in really close, it doesn't get any clearer. You've got to sit back a bit. So I do recommend that you download this image from Mars Magazine. I'll put a link to it in the description so you can get to it. And I advise you to download it and have a really close look yourself, because the detail in here is absolutely astonishing. I'll just read what it says at the top. This Mars humanoid is about 2 foot long, buried under a ridge in Gale crater. The huge bird has a chamber under it, which may have been robbed of treasure. Whatever. Yeah, but there does seem to be a chamber here. If you go in close, now it may just be where. Sorry, it's difficult to zoom in and out of this. It may just be where this is broken away, but it is possible that this was chiseled out, because we've got an almost perfect right angle here, and we've got this sort of darker patch underneath, right? So is it possible that someone actually chiseled that out? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'm wishful thinking there. I don't know. But you can clearly see that this is a giant bird. And I'll put loads of clips of this in at the end. So if you want to see more close-ups, I'll do close-ups of every part of this and put them all in sequence for you, so we can see the front, the middle, and the back, and everything, and the buried warrior here, right? But if you look at the Gigaplan clip here in black and white, you can actually see where parts of it have fallen down. We've got this part here that was probably joined up here, and this part here which was probably joined. So we've got parts of it that have fallen away. This is probably just erosion and age that's caused that. And the extreme weather conditions, frost would probably form on this and freeze and basically split the rock or the mineralized bird and split parts of this off. Okay, so the extreme cold would do that. If you get ice in between the cracks, and then it expands, it gradually splits it open. Okay, so there we are. I mean, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. I'm still kind of a bit gobsmacked by this, really, because not only does it confirm that there are buried people on Mars, but it also confirms my long-held belief that there are birds on Mars. Okay, and some of them were massive. Not just Earth-sized birds, but really, really large. Is it possible to work out how big this thing is? Let's have a look at the whole thing. I actually think that the entire length of it would have probably come to about here, where my cursor is there. So it would have come all the way past here. So if that's 2, 4, 6, 8. This bird would have been about 10 foot long. Now, a bird with a body that size and the tail would probably come to there, 10. The wingspan would have been about 30 feet. Or even more, 30 or 40 feet. This is almost as big as the giant bird I found before. Unbelievable, right? And just to give you an idea, let me get that video up for you. Now, this is a video I did years ago. Now, this is a remake of the original video. 6-foot bird skull found on Mars, giant thunderbird. Now, the original I did 3 years earlier, in 2013. But I did a remake. Unfortunately, this is quite a long way off, and it's taken from a mass cam image, which is poor quality. But we have here a bird, another raven-type family bird, with a long beak, and this eye and the head, which has been torn away. This is just lying out in the open, and it's not in very good shape. But not far from where we are today, only probably about 2 kilometers away, 2 or 3 kilometers. Basically, you can even see the eye detail here. So this is similar type of preservation here. This is about 5 feet long, 5 or 6 feet long. So it was even bigger than the thing we're looking at today. This is a ginormous thing. And what I did a scale of it, just to give you an idea. Here's the raw clip. It's not a very good quality image, unfortunately, because it's a long way off. And you can see where the back of the head's been torn away. There's the eye, there's the beak. Okay, the eye's actually pretty clear on this. So these are recent, some of these. It's a giant bird. Okay, now there is in here somewhere, there we are, there's an image of the scale of this bird. This is ArtAlienTV magnificens on Earth. That's the largest bird we have, or did have, now extinct, flying bird, 7-meter wingspan. Here's a Cessna aircraft, right? 10.1 meter wingspan. The bird on Mars, which I called Ares Maximus, right, which I discovered in 2013, with the massive beak and head, would have been 50 feet, okay? And the one we're looking at today is, I think, the same sort of bird, but it's smaller. And it's probably about half this size, or about 2/3. So it would have had a wingspan of about 35 to 40 feet, but it may not be fully grown, okay? Or maybe a subspecies, I don't know. So these things were ginormous. They were bigger than sort of light aircraft, okay? Now, why would they have got so big? Well, there must have been a lot of food available, and the lower gravity means that there would be less weight restrictions on animal size and human size or humanoid size or anything. Buildings could be 3 times the size, animals could be 3 times the size, people could be 3 times the size. Okay, and some of the skulls that I found of people or humanoids on Mars are ginormous. They're way, way bigger than ours. They're 3 times the height, 3 times the width, 3 times the depth. You know, they're, instead of like a 9-inch skull, you got skulls that are 18 and 24 inches. Some of them, some of them are 2 foot, 3 times the size of a human skull. Okay, so there's a lot of things on Mars which were very, very large, but there are also things which were very, very small. Just because things can grow large doesn't mean they will, and this is why you have things like this. Where you have, on small islands, you have birds growing very large and usually become flightless because they've got no need. If there's a ready food source and there's no predators, they would, like the dodo, there would be no need to fly because they don't have any natural predators. But of course, not all giant birds were flightless. Okay, a lot of them were, but not all of them. Some of them were flying around and probably catching and eating these little people, okay? Our ancient ancestors, all right? Unbelievable. So this seems to have been going on Mars as well, and we have evidence of it today. So let's go back to that. There it is. I mean, I'm still absolutely blown away by this, and I'm not really sure what else to say, apart from the fact that this is a very important archaeological find, because as far as I'm concerned, this really is almost like the Holy Grail of finds, because you've got a double find, and it confirms what I've been saying. Not only were there giant birds, but there were small people, as well as giant people on Mars, okay? And I really don't see how this could be fobbed off as just pareidolia, just rocks shaped like something. The details in here are way, way too specific for them to be random. Let's look at the beak, for instance. This is rather strange, this beak, and it seems to be missing a part. I think there would have been a part here. There may be a part there, but we can't see it. It may have fallen off, who knows? You got an eye, the head coming around like that, okay? There's the neck coming down there, there's the eye. The beak, obviously, it's a bit sort of eroded, and you can see where the wing came up here, right there. And you've even got feather detail in there where it's fossilized. There's structure to it. And unfortunately, the back end of it is kind of broken off and the bottom part's broken. But apart from that, it's in very good shape. Now, this may be 1 million years old, it may be 2 million years old, I don't know. I really don't know how old this thing is. We need to get some serious archaeological teams up there now and start looking at this stuff before people like Elon Musk rob all the goodies and sell them on the bloody eBay or whatever, you know? These people, honestly, this is what they want. This is why people want to go to Mars. Not only are there priceless artifacts like gold lying around, gold statues and things like that, but then we have priceless and fascinating archaeological burials like this, where we have multiple burials in some areas. A lot of the mounds, as I've shown before in previous videos, are dolmens. This is a bit like a dolmen, but they're more of a natural dolmen. We have a rock overhang here and a hollowed out part here. Now this was probably completely buried. There may have been smaller rocks piled up against this at some point, which have fallen down. But I'd imagine it was just largely buried by sand. So, was this a nobleman? Not a very high-standing nobleman, I wouldn't have thought, because there would be a more elaborate structure around it. If this was a burial of a king or a prince or whatever, or something, or a priest, there would be a much more elaborate structure around this. But what we have is a fairly primitive structure. So this is possibly a knight or warrior of not amazingly high standing, but it seems to have been buried right alongside a bird. Now, why would that be? Did this little guy here own this bird? Did they domesticate these giant birds? What do they do with them? This opens up a whole Pandora's box of possibilities. Absolutely incredible. I'll put some clips of this coming up in a second, and you can have a really good look at this in close up. And I'll take clips of the whole GIGApan and all these things along here as well to see if there's anything else as well, which there may well be. But if this, like I said, if this was a high-standing person that was buried here, I would imagine there'd be a much more elaborate structure around this. Okay, at least there would be sort of a walled structure around it, and a lot more elaborate. This is fairly primitive. So I'm not saying this is like a king or something like some of the things I've found before. This looks more like just a warrior, but one who possibly owned a giant bird. Because these look like they were buried at the same time. Is it possible that they ended up here after a tsunami or something like that, or just died and got swept together and then solidified in clay and mineralized into stone? That's possible. These could be tsunami victims, but this looks like it's been placed there on this little ledge at the back, just here, you know? I mean, how would that happen randomly? I'm struggling to get my head around that. So it looks to me, for all intents and purposes, that this was buried at the same time as the bird. Okay? That is mental. And of course we do have burials on Earth where people were buried with their horses, often with cats and dogs and other creatures, especially in places like Egypt and places like that. You know, some kings were buried with their chariots and all sorts of things. So I don't think this was a king, but this was somebody who owned a giant bird. How insane is that? So I'll put clips of more birds and stuff in here. There are other videos where I found burials of small people as well, which are only about 2 foot long, 18 inches or so, you know, so some of them were quite small. So this bird is massive, but it's not as big as the other one I showed a minute ago, which is this one, which I've called Ares Maximus. I think it's the same type of bird, but not quite as big as this one. This one was full size, and I wouldn't imagine they get much bigger than that, even on Mars, with only 1/3 Earth's gravity. So there we are. So Ares Maximus, we found another one. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. Oh my God. So all those people who said I was mental and stupid and drunk and on drugs for posting things that are just freaking rocks can go screw themselves, right? Because I've just found another one, and I'll probably find more, right? So if you're one of those people, take a good, long, hard look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, who the hell are you? What are you? Okay? Jesus Christ. So I'll put links to all this stuff. Sorry about that rant, but you know, I get trolled a lot and people are attacking me constantly. Not quite as much as they used to. I think they're too busy doing other things like looting at the moment. So there we are. So thanks for watching. Clips coming up in a few seconds. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please share it on social media. Thanks for watching. See you soon.